Caitlyn Clark got a little get back at Kelsey Plum.
She was taking a shot, could not help but to drag Caitlyn Clark through the glass as she did.
0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
WNBA is on a hot streak. They're finally turning a corner.
Kelsey Plum.
What happens when the most powerful athlete in a league doesn't have to say a word to win the loudest battle? In a world where press conferences, call-outs, and hashtags dominate headlines, Caitlyn Clark just flipped the script with silence. At first, it looked like a routine all-star weekend. Players gathered, statements were made, shirts were worn. But then one line changed everything.
Not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
Or her actually making comments about Caitlyn Clark's team not being at this meeting for the CBA negotiations.
Kelsey Plum made a pointed remark that felt less like unity and more like a jab. And while most would have clapped back instantly, Caitlyn didn't flinch. She didn't tweet. She didn't even show up. What she did instead was quietly redefine power. This wasn't just a personal feud. It pulled back the curtain on deeper issues inside the WNBA: jealousy, politics, and the growing tension between the old guard and a new wave. Let's unravel how one subtle comment exposed everything, and how Caitlyn Clark emerged stronger than ever.
This week they wore t-shirts saying, making a statement, you better pay us. But instead of just leaving it at that, a Kelsey Plum for LA had to take it.
It all started with what should have been a celebration of the league's progress. The WNBA All-Star Weekend was meant to highlight women's basketball, unity, and rising talent. But instead of shared momentum, a press conference turned into something far more divisive.
The t-shirt, just united front, was determined this morning that we had a meeting for. And, not to tattletale, but
Kelsey Plum, one of the league's biggest names, made a subtle but very deliberate remark. 0 members of Team Clark were present. On the surface, it sounded harmless, just a comment about who did or didn't attend a meeting. But to fans watching closely, it felt like a thinly veiled dig. Clark, who had already been ruled out of the game due to injury and wasn't even participating, suddenly found herself at the center of controversy she hadn't invited. It wasn't just the comment, it was the tone, the timing, and the clear intent to highlight absence as if it meant indifference. But the reality behind that moment was far more complex, and Caitlyn's response? It was pure chess.
Kelsey Plum, when she was talking after the WNBA All-Star game, and could not help but to drag Caitlyn Clark, the moneymaker for their league, through the glass as she did it.
Many rushed to judgment, but few bothered to look deeper. Caitlyn Clark wasn't in that meeting because she wasn't playing. She wasn't in the locker room, and she wasn't part of the event planning. The decision had nothing to do with protest, unity, or pay discussions. It was a matter of health and logistics. Yet somehow, her name, or at least her team, got dragged into the spotlight. It's a recurring pattern. When someone becomes the face of a movement, every move, or lack thereof, is scrutinized. But this time, the backlash wasn't directed at a league executive or a rival player. It was aimed at the very person responsible for bringing millions of eyes to the WNBA.
Kelsey Plum, she was taking a shot at Caitlyn Clark's situation involving the "pay us what you owe us" shirt.
The timing was off, and the message, however subtle, was received loud and clear. Caitlyn was being framed as disengaged when the reality couldn't have been further from the truth.
Kelsey Plum dig, it did very odd.
Might have just ruffled some feathers with Caitlyn Clark and her all-star team.
Sometimes you don't need words to tell a story, and that's exactly what happened during that now viral press conference. As Kelsey Plum made her pointed remark, Sabrina Ionescu sat beside her, stiffening in real time. Her body language said everything her mouth didn't. She didn't nod, didn't laugh, didn't co-sign the comment. She just sat there, visibly uncomfortable, as if she too realized that the line between honesty and shade had just been crossed. It was a moment that divided the room, not just physically but emotionally. What was meant to be a unified front for player pay turned into a live example of the very fracture fans have been sensing for months. The growing rift between those who embrace the Caitlyn Clark wave and those who resist it.
Is they're sick of the activism part of it, which is what the other night was. Let's go out and show solidarity in protest kind of crap.
There's a strange irony in criticizing the person who's fueling your success. Caitlyn Clark isn't just a rookie. She's the league's financial engine right now. From record-breaking viewership to ticket sales and jersey numbers that rival the NBA, her presence is a marketing dream. She brought in new fans, filled stadiums, and forced major sponsors to take notice. And yet, in that moment, the conversation wasn't about what she brought to the league. It was about what she hadn't done that day. It raised an uncomfortable question. Why target the one person who has done the most to shift the narrative of women's basketball in decades? The answer may not be about unity or principle, it might just be about power. And what Caitlyn did next flipped that conversation on its head.
Team Clark, they had no idea what was awaiting them walking into that locker room.
Caitlyn Clark could have easily gone to the media. She could have tweeted, posted, or fired back with a clever soundbite. Instead, she let timing do the work. Just days after Kelsey Plum's remark, Caitlyn appeared in a high-profile Nike campaign that launched across the internet like wildfire. It wasn't just a commercial, it was a message. And the cherry on top? Caitlyn casually jumped into Plum's own Instagram comments with a line so graceful it could cut glass. "Thanks for the Nike ad." That one sentence changed the entire vibe of the conversation. No anger, no pettiness, just a calculated, classy reminder of who really owns the moment. It wasn't revenge, it was dominance disguised as gratitude.
That was a very powerful moment. We didn't, at least as players, we didn't know that that was going to happen. So I think it was kind of the best genuine surprise. But the t-shirt, just united front, was determined this morning that we had a meeting for. And, not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
Caitlyn's Instagram comment exploded online. Fans didn't just notice, they rallied. Thousands of likes, shares, and replies turned her quiet reply into a headline-grabbing flex. And as the digital world watched, something strange happened. Kelsey Plum didn't respond. No defense, no clarification, just silence. And that silence said more than any follow-up ever could. For someone who had taken the first swing, Plum found herself boxed into a corner she hadn't expected. Meanwhile, Caitlyn stood tall, not by talking louder, but by proving that real power doesn't need a microphone. It needs presence. The more fans talked, the more obvious it became. Caitlyn had just redefined how stars handle shade. Even without suiting up during All-Star Weekend, Caitlyn was the most talked about name across the WNBA. Her brand deals gained more traction. Media coverage kept circling her name, and the corporate world was all in. She wasn't just present in conversations, she was controlling them. While other players laced up, Caitlyn quietly made moves that outshined everything happening on the court. Her silence turned into spotlight, and it became clearer by the day that the league's momentum, its finances, its fame, and its future had her signature all over it. The fan base reaction wasn't split, it was overwhelming. Social media threads lit up not with debates, but with support for Caitlyn Clark. Casual fans, longtime WNBA viewers, and even NBA legends jumped in to defend her. One viral tweet summed it up perfectly. Kelsey Plum got more attention for dissing Caitlyn than anything she's done all season. That wasn't just shade, it was a reality check. Even when Caitlyn stays silent, she steals the show. And fans weren't just reacting out of loyalty, they were responding to what felt like unfair treatment. You can ask for progress, but tearing down the person making it possible, that just doesn't sit right. As the storm swirled off the court, Caitlyn returned to it and did what she always does: perform. Despite intense physical play, constant pressure, and an atmosphere full of tension, she kept showing up and delivering. She didn't need post-game interviews to make her point. Her game said it all. Each pass, each shot, each moment of control on the court reminded everyone why she's not just a star, she's the star. And even her critics had to admit it, there's no slowing her down. Critics began to look beyond the headlines and notice something deeper. Kelsey Plum's comment wasn't an isolated moment, it was part of a pattern. Subtle digs, passive-aggressive interviews, awkward locker room tension, all signs of growing discomfort among veteran players with the attention Caitlyn's getting. But it wasn't Caitlyn's fault. She didn't chase the spotlight, it followed her. From Iowa gyms to global campaigns, her rise was organic. And the resistance she faced? It wasn't about her actions, it was about what her success revealed. As the media frenzy faded into the background, something more unsettling remained. A quiet divide within the very locker rooms that are supposed to represent sisterhood, unity, and mutual respect. Caitlyn Clark isn't just the target of public scrutiny, she's become a symbol for a changing league, and not everyone inside the WNBA seems comfortable with that change. Behind the high fives and team huddles, there's a noticeable hesitation when it comes to supporting Clark. Some players embrace her, others remain silent, and a few, like Kelsey Plum, appear willing to throw darts in public. But what's most revealing isn't what's said out loud. It's the energy when she enters the room. The glances, the tension, the almost visible discomfort from those who feel their spotlight dimming as hers brightens. That unspoken friction, it's not just competitive fire, it's fear. Fear that the new face of the league isn't one of their own. Fear that this newcomer, with her humble grace and enormous following, might unintentionally expose just how little attention the WNBA had before she arrived. In any professional league, talent matters. But economics? That changes everything. Before Caitlyn Clark, WNBA expansion fees hovered around $50 million. Within months of her debut, that number exploded to $250 million. Merchandise sales jumped over 500%. Attendance surged across nearly every arena she played in. And television ratings, higher than NHL and MLB broadcasts on major nights. Let's be clear, these aren't coincidences. This is the Caitlyn Clark effect in action. And while many players campaign for higher pay, better flights, and more media respect, which are all deserved causes, it's Clark's presence that's accelerating those conversations. The uncomfortable truth is this: for years, the league begged for visibility. Now that it's here, some aren't ready to share it. But that visibility didn't show up because of a hashtag. It arrived because one player moved the needle on her own. And instead of celebrating that as a victory for all, some decided to question her loyalty because she missed a meeting. That's not unity, that's ego getting in the way of progress. If there's one thing more powerful than headlines, it's endorsements. And in the business of sports, brands speak volumes. After Kelsey Plum's comments started making waves, it wasn't just fans who rallied behind Clark, it was major companies. Nike, Gatorade, Wilson, all doubled down on their commitment to her. And that one Instagram comment, "Thanks for the Nike ad," didn't just hit hard, it went viral. Why? Because it reminded everyone that Caitlyn doesn't need to shout to dominate. Her influence is woven into the very structure of the league's future. Meanwhile, Kelsey, an Under Armour athlete, found herself sharing stages with Nike billboards bearing Clark's face. No matter what was said at that press conference, Caitlyn had already won the battle. Not with words, but with numbers, endorsements, and a fan base that's proven fiercely loyal. And when brands speak, the league listens, whether they admit it or not. Here's the truth the league doesn't want to admit. The WNBA was never structured to handle a megastar. It's a league built on collective identity, team-first culture, and gradual growth. But Caitlyn Clark doesn't fit that mold, she breaks it. And rather than reimagining how the league could evolve around her, some within it are trying to force her to shrink. They want her to conform, to stay in line, to earn her stripes before leading. But Clark already earned that respect, not just through her record-breaking college career, but through her ability to carry an entire league's visibility without asking for special treatment. She doesn't demand spotlight. She earns it every night she touches the court. And yet, the system around her seems resistant to change, clinging to traditions that no longer serve the moment. If the WNBA truly wants to grow, it needs to stop treating Caitlyn like a threat and start treating her like what she is, a once-in-a-generation opportunity. In an era of viral tweets and hot takes, silence is rare. And when it comes from someone at the center of the storm, it becomes deafening. Caitlyn Clark never responded to Kelsey Plum in a press conference. She didn't post cryptic captions. She didn't go live. Her only comment was a light, almost sarcastic Instagram reply that instantly flipped the power dynamic. And that restraint, that refusal to engage in public back and forth, made her look stronger than any fiery quote ever could. It also exposed how petty the original comment truly was. When someone tries to drag you down and you rise higher instead? That's not just maturity, that's strategy. And it left Plum and others who may have quietly co-signed her dig scrambling to redirect the narrative. But the damage was already done. Caitlyn didn't just win the public, she owned the moment. With silence. What makes this moment so powerful is that fans aren't being fooled. They see the nuance. They understand that this wasn't about one missed meeting or one Instagram comment. It was about something much bigger. The league's internal struggle to balance legacy with momentum. Kelsey Plum may have spoken out to rally players, but her decision to single out Caitlyn Clark only exposed the very fractures the league tries to hide. And the fans? They sided with Clark. Not because she's perfect, not because she's untouchable, but because she handled the whole situation with something the league desperately needs more of: grace. She didn't attack, she didn't divide, she just kept being great. And in a league built on unity, the real leaders are the ones who don't have to shout to be heard. When the dust settles, people might look back at this moment not as a feud, but as a fork in the road. Caitlyn Clark didn't just survive a public jab, she turned it into a defining chapter of her legacy. And the league? It's standing at a crossroads. Does it embrace the change she represents? Or does it resist it out of fear and jealousy? The tension inside the WNBA isn't just between players, it's systemic. It's the clash between the old model of slow, steady growth and the new wave of explosive visibility. And the way it handles Caitlyn Clark could determine whether the league grows into the future or gets left behind by it. Because as of now, the fans, the media, and the sponsors have already chosen who they believe in. And it's not the loudest voice, it's the one making the biggest impact. The truth is, not every league gets this kind of breakout moment. Caitlyn Clark didn't just bring headlines, she brought transformation. Attendance records shattered. Jersey sales went wild. Networks that once buried WNBA highlights began leading with them. And international fans who had never even heard of the league started watching. Yet even with all that momentum, there's still hesitation from within. Certain executives, players, and commentators seem uncomfortable with how fast the spotlight shifted. But this isn't a passing trend. It's a movement. The WNBA is finally in a position to scale in ways it never imagined. But that future isn't guaranteed. Because if the league spends more energy managing egos than maximizing stars, it could lose the very momentum Clark has built. The question isn't whether Caitlyn can carry the league, it's whether the league is ready to let her. What makes Caitlyn Clark so polarizing isn't just her numbers, it's her presence. She walks into a room and people pay attention. That kind of gravity is rare, and for some it's intimidating. But instead of welcoming her into the league's leadership structure, certain players and insiders have tried to marginalize her. Whether through subtle digs, icy interviews, or press conference callouts, the message is clear: earn your place. But what they don't understand is that Clark's already earned it, not through entitlement, but through undeniable impact. And the more they try to minimize her, the more fans rally, the more brands invest, the more the media leans in. That's the irony. Every attempt to dim her light only makes it shine brighter, because true greatness doesn't need permission. It just keeps showing up, proving its worth again and again, until there's no room left for doubt. This isn't just about one weekend or one viral moment, it's about legacy. Caitlyn Clark represents more than a player. She represents a new era, one where athletes can build billion-dollar brands without saying a word, one where silent confidence defeats loud envy, and one where fans demand transparency, fairness, and real leadership. What happened between Clark and Plum wasn't just a feud, it was a spotlight on what's holding the league back. The future's watching. Young girls in gymnasiums, global fans tuning in for the first time, brands looking to place billion-dollar bets, and what they see matters. If the WNBA embraces this moment, it could become the fastest-growing league in the world. But if it fumbles it, if it continues to let jealousy, politics, and passive aggression steer the narrative, it may never get another shot like this. Caitlyn isn't just the face of the league. She's the test of whether the league is ready to grow. Caitlyn Clark's story isn't about revenge. It's about resilience. It's about what happens when power meets grace, when silence becomes strategy, When a young player doesn't just survive the storm, she redirects it. Kelsey Plum's comment may have started a media wildfire, but it ended with a lesson the entire WNBA should take seriously. Don't underestimate the quiet ones. Because while others chase attention, Caitlyn Clark earns influence. And when history looks back, this won't be remembered as a petty all-star drama. It will be seen as the moment the league had a choice, to evolve or to stay small. If you're with the future, if you stand for growth, grace, and game-changing leadership, drop "I've got the fever" in the comments, like this video, and subscribe. Because Caitlyn Clark isn't just changing the game, she is the game.